I have done just as I have been instructed, Professor. With the mine closed down, there'll be no one around to observe your excavations. Ah, I have visitors.
Just remember what I told you, General. There's really no need to make a martyr out of that man.
I'm sorry to keep you waiting, Senor. Welcome to Quarmonte.
Thanks. My name's George Stobart from California.
But what is this? An angel come down to earth.
Nicole Collard. Enchantée, mon général.
Pardon me, Senorita, but I couldn't help myself.
Look, we'd like to ask you a few questions.
You've come to the right place, Senor. Tourist information. General Graciento, at your service.
This is the tourist office? It says police on the sign outside.
It is both, Senor. I am a man of many parts.
I can see that, Général.
Have you heard of a guy called Karzak?
No, I never heard of him.
I hear there was an accident at the mine a few months ago.
That's correct.
A lot of men killed, weren't there?
A few.
30?
Barely 1% of the working population.
Who was the guy you were talking to when we arrived?
Professor Oubier, a visitor, Senor, like yourselves.
Did you say Oubier?
Si, Senor. Professor Oubier, a French archaeologist.
What's Oubier doing in Quarmonte?
Researching our rich and glorious past, Senor. The professor is planning an expedition to some Mayan ruins. He came to see me to get an excavation permit.
Have you ever seen anything like this before?
That's a native carving, isn't it? Where did you get it?
We picked it up in the market, as a souvenir.
Take a look at this label.
Si, Senor. Condor Transglobal.
Can you tell me where to find their offices?
No, Senor. I never heard of them, and neither did Ronaldo.
Are you sure you never heard of Condor?
Oh, yes.
The company is registered here, in Quarmonte City.
You are mistaken, Senorita.
The musicians out in the square say that a ship flying the Condor flag was birthed here.
They are simple peasants. They will go along with anything you say in the hopes of parting you from your money.
Condor is run by Karzak, isn't it?
Wrong again, Senor. Karzak has nothing to do with anything called Condor, whoever he is.
Do you keep a record of companies registered in Quarmonte?
Of course, Senorita. Unfortunately, all the records were destroyed by a flash flood.
Is it true there's a restriction on music in Quarmonte?
Yes, there is. An emergency measure introduced by Nuestra Senora.
Folk music is a link with the past for some of these people. Take away their musical roots and what do they got left?
Easy listening.
You think easy listening could replace a musical heritage hundreds of years old?
Why not? It happened in your country.
Are there any ruins around the city?
Of course, Senor. Quarmonte has everything.
I have a friend who wants to visit an historical site.
Ronaldo will only be too pleased to conduct a guided tour. When he's dealt with today's paperwork, of course.
I'll be back.
Senor. Leave that child alone.
He had the eyes of a cocker spaniel set in a face like a deflated souffle. I couldn't help wondering what had driven him to work for a man like the General. Hi, I'm George Stobart.
Hello, Senor. How can I help you?
I'd like to visit your prisoner.
Condemned prisoners aren't allowed visitors.
Condemned?
To death. He is to be executed. Knowing my luck, I will probably have to shoot him myself.
Amnesty International is going to hear about this. I thought Miguel was arrested for playing the wrong kind of music.
Si, senor, he was.
And that carries the death penalty?
No. You think we're crazy? While being questioned, he confessed to being an anti-government agent.
Are there any ancient pyramids near Quaramonte?
Si, senor. But it's not very impressive. It's in ruins.
That's perfect. Would you be willing to give a guided tour of the ruins?
I can't. The General would have a fit if I left all this paperwork.
So long.
Why did you show him the stone?
I thought maybe he might know something about it.
Well, he does now, for sure. He knows we have it.
Did you notice that chart on the police station wall?
Yes, it looked like a map to me, but I couldn't make out the details.
Whatever it was, the general didn't want us to see it. You came on a little strong with the general.
I was merely flattering his ego, Georges. Every man has his Achilles heel.
Maybe, but that guy's weakness isn't in his foot. That man we saw talking to the general was Oubier. Didn't you recognize him?
I never met him, remember? The guy I called in Paris claimed to be Oubier, but he sounded nothing like the man in the police station. Maybe the professor really is innocent.
Nah, it's too much of a coincidence that he's here in Quaramonte. It was that suspect archaeologist, Oubier. Professor Oubier?
Yes? Who are you?
My name is Stobart, George Stobart. What are you doing in Quaramonte, Professor?
Seeking Mayan artifacts. Central American history has been my life's work.
Does the name Karzak mean anything to you?
Yes, I know him. In fact, if it wasn't for Karzak, I wouldn't be here.
What?
He's financing my expedition.
Have you ever employed a Central American butler or servant?
I've never employed any kind of servant, monsieur.
What do you know about my girlfriend's abduction?
I don't know what you're talking about.
She was invited to your mansion in Paris.
Not by me, she wasn't. I haven't been home for nearly 7 months.
Can you tell me anything about this stone?
Where did you get that?
That's my business.
How much do you want for it?
It's not for sale. Can you identify this statue, Professor?
Oh, yes. Tezcatlipoca, the Lord of Darkness.
A Central American god, right?
A supreme deity. Tezcatlipoca means, literally, smoking mirror. There. You see the mirror shield in his left hand? The Mayans believed he could look into the mirror and see into the hearts of men. He was the wind which came howling in the night in search of victims. And victims they gave him by the thousand.
Human sacrifices?
Men, women, children, animals, anything that bled. The steps of his temple ran red with the blood of sacrifices. The Mayans have a legend that says he'll return one day. I hope I'm not around to see it.
Do you see this label?
Yes, it refers to a company named Condor. What of it?
I traced that company here to Quaramonte. Do you know where I can find the offices of Condor Transglobal?
The company no longer exists. They went bankrupt recently.
I have proof that you are directly involved with Condor.
I used them as shippers to transport artifacts to a gallery in Paris. Beyond that, I have no connection with the company, which, as I said, no longer exists.
Take a look at this, Professor. What have you got to say about that?
Where did you get this?
Never mind that. How do you explain these withdrawals?
I left my financial affairs in the hands of my secretary.
Including the withdrawal of funds in cash from your personal account?
I trust Gwyneth implicitly.
And why Marseille? Why the very place my girlfriend was taken?
That's obvious, Stobart. We are both the victims of the same devious plot.
What plot?
I have no idea.
Do you know anything about this eclipse, Professor?
Of course. It's not the reason I'm here in Quaramonte, but I'm looking forward to seeing it all the same.
What's your interest in the eclipse, Professor?
Oh, it's purely a layman's curiosity. History's my subject, not astronomy. But I've been fascinated by the movements of the heavenly bodies since I was a child. I wouldn't miss a total eclipse for the world.
Does the eclipse have some special significance for you?
For me? No. For the ancient Mayans, it marked the end of the Fifth Age.
Perhaps we should be celebrating.
Ah, no. The end of each age heralds destruction on a global scale. The fifth is the final age, ending in the total destruction of the Earth.
Tell me about the general. You know, the guy in charge around here.
We don't want to talk about him, senor.
How come? No one can hear you. Well, only that old goat.
In Quaramonte we have a saying. Don't tell your old goat what you don't want your wife to know.
What does that mean?
I don't know.
Did you find any evidence of Condor's drug smuggling operations?
Drugs? Hell no! Condor was a cover for the illegal export of Mayan artifacts.
So who was behind Condor Transglobal?
It was registered in the name of Edan.
Did you get the guy?
I don't think he ever existed. Edan backwards spells Nady, Spanish for nobody.
Do you think the general was involved with Condor?
Hell no. And if he's a general, I'm a Buddhist. No, that fella's just a mouthpiece for the real power in Quaramonte.
So the general is nothing but a puppet?
He's like Pinocchio before he met the Blue Rinse Fairy. Strictly strings and wood.
Who's pulling the strings?
His mother. Better known as La Presidenta, the dictator.
Is Miguel the reason you're here?
Pretty smart, George. I was supposed to make contact with him. By the time I found him, though, he was in jail. I've been trying to figure out a way to get him out since then.
Sounds good to me. Count me in.
Good man, George. All I need is a detonator.
How come you brought a truckload of explosives but no detonator?
Call me old-fashioned, but I say packing trunks is woman's work. I left the packing to Pearl, and I can't find a darn thing. Just hope she remembered to bring my denture polish. I'd sure hate to arrive back in the States with tar on my teeth.
Hey, Nico!